Welcome to Huddle Up with Matias Bueno. Today's guest is former Saskatchewan Roughriders wide receiver, two-time Grey Cup champion, and with over 6,000 receiving yards in his career, Chris Getzlaf. Chris, thanks for being on today's episode. I'm super excited to talk football with you. Even though you may be from a rival football team, you've had such an illustrious career playing for your hometown Saskatchewan Roughriders.
Hey, thank you so much. Happy to be here.
So you retired from the CFL a handful of years ago and have stayed in your hometown, Regina. You've essentially been there for such a long time but been through so many different waves of your career with playing for the Riders, playing football in Saskatchewan as well, growing up, and then retiring and working in Saskatchewan. I want to take it back a little bit to your junior playing days before you made it to the CFL. Now you're a Prairie Thunder alumni. So in the days that you were playing junior for them, what were your thoughts on playing professional football? Was it something that seemed realistic at the time or feasible going through that outlet? Or was it something that was maybe a little bit more far away, I guess you could say, because junior still was maybe not as highly acclaimed as university in and around that era?
Yeah, I mean, coming out of high school, I knew that I wanted to continue to play football as long as I could because I loved the sport. So I just wanted to continue playing. And, my opportunity was to play with the Thunder in junior football. And I got into that. And, my first 2 years on the team, I didn't really have any thoughts about playing professional football. It was just something that I was able to continue playing as I loved all through high school and, being able to experience the locker room and friends, you name it, everything that comes along with playing a sport. So it wasn't until my third year in junior where I actually kind of set a goal to make it to the CFL. And I kind of marked out my path on how I thought that I would be able to do that. And that was going to be playing another couple of years in junior and then moving on and playing a couple in university.
And the interesting thing about the relationship between the Rams and the Thunder is that the Rams used to be the junior team in Regina and then moved up to university. And then the Prairie Thunder came into existence. So they were a fairly new club at the time. With how things were going during your time playing for the Thunder, did you guys have a lot of success in your time playing for the team, or how did you find the experience with playing in Regina in the CJFL?
Well, the experience was amazing. How we were as a team, we kind of had our ups and downs kind of each year. For the most part, we were above 500. But you're right, it was the second year of existence, I believe, for the Prairie Thunder when I joined the team. So, it was kind of us getting our feet wet, and a lot of the players that were previously part of the Rams organization when they were in junior, went on to play university with them. So it was more so, a bunch of new players that are kind of getting together and forming a team and getting our feet wet in the league. So, we did have some success, definitely didn't win a championship by any stretch. I think the best year that we had when I was on the team, I think we were 6-2 during the season. So, but mostly around 4-4, 5-3.
I find it really strange to hear that, because in my CJFL playing days, being on the Winnipeg Rifles was exactly how it sounds like you guys had success when you're on the Prairie Thunder, always being that 4-4, 5-3, and then maybe having one good season, because as people who follow the CJFL would know that the Saskatchewan Hilltops took over as the junior champions, or the New England Patriots of the CJFL, for lack of a better phrase, once the Regina Rams moved up to CIS in the early 2000s. I think it was in 99 or the early 2000s. So
yeah, that's correct. And my whole junior career, the Hilltops were by far the best team. It wasn't a question. We only beat them once, I believe, in a mud bowl in Saskatoon. We think we beat them 13-12. So
oh my goodness.
I remember that because it was the only time we beat them.
Well, beating the Saskatchewan Hilltops is an impressive feat for any CJFL team, whether you're the Regina Thunder now, Winnipeg Rifles, or any of the teams in BC or Ontario. when you're playing CGFL football, since there's so few guys that have massive success in the CFL, there must have been somebody that you looked up to, or some football players when you were a kid growing up in Regina. The Saskatchewan Roughriders are the religion within following professional sports, as it's the only professional sports team. Did you look up to any Saskatchewan Roughriders when you watched football and played football growing up as a kid?
When it came to the Roughriders, I mean, a handful of guys, Dan Farthing is one of them for sure, just because he was more local. He's a Saskatoon guy. So he was definitely a guy that I kind of followed when he was on the Riders. And then, past guys like Ray Elgard, I mean, you're talking a legend, an absolute legend who put up all kinds of numbers, played the game tough, was a big body. He's the one that really, I think, took full advantage of the waggle before others really got into doing that. So, there was a lot of things that I could pick up from a guy like that, and then watching film on him. For me, a little closer to my generation was like a Jason Claremont. He played for the junior team when it was the Rams still playing junior, and then he played for the university team as well when they converted, and then went on to play professional sport. He went to the same high school as I did in Robert Usher Collegiate. So, I think 5 years younger than him, but, I got to see kind of him progress through each of those levels of football. And I just, the whole time, just loved how he played the game. Smart, really smart football player, great hands, and tough as nails. So I admired how he played the game, and that was definitely someone that I looked up to.
Now, Jason Claremont, his career ended with the Riders, I believe, sometime towards the end of the late 2000s. Did you guys cross over for a few years in your playing days, or did you just miss him being on the team?
No, I got to play with him for a couple of years when he was in Saskatchewan, which was amazing. Got to room with him a little bit on the road and share some stories, whatever. We're still friends today. So it was nice to be able to have that crossover and be able to play with a guy like that, and, be able to have day-to-day practices where you have someone with that kind of experience and that kind of success in the league being there to help guide you and help mold you into a better player.
Now, having mentioned that he was someone whose game you admired, and then being able to actually be a teammate of his and room with him and get to know him, how did that change your perspective on the job that you had as a professional athlete? Because growing up as a kid, and I'm sure in a province like Saskatchewan where football is very popular and the Riders are a big deal, to get to go from being that kid watching the team growing up and playing football and always dreaming of being on your hometown team, to then playing with somebody that you admired, what was that experience like?
I mean, it was great, to be able to, grow up watching a team and see the ups and downs that they had gone through, and to really become a part of that professional team during a great run, really. We had a lot of success while I was on the team, and, that was due to a lot of things, the organization as a whole, but, the players that they were able to bring in, and coaching staff, training staff, you name it. But we had a good core group of guys that lasted on the team for several years, and we just played well together, and it made the locker room really fun. And I believe that anyone that came there really enjoyed it. And when you're having fun every day, success seems to follow that.
For sure. And even in the era that you played for the Riders was definitely one of the most successful in team history. I don't know if there's a more successful era, judging how there's only 4 Grey Cup wins, and 2 of them came within 6 years, which the other 2 were not within we're not within less than 15 years apart. So that it almost seems like a dream in a way, because growing up as a kid, for me, I always saw Saskatchewan as a team that was always good and a force to be reckoned with. But anyone who was way older than me would always say, oh, well, they're a bad team, or they only found success in a few years. But to have that golden era be the main part of your career, it just must have been something that doesn't even seem real at times. I'm sure that it didn't hit you probably till a few years after, like, oh, wow, like we played during like one of the best eras in team history. How insane is that?
Yeah, I mean, you have a good idea really within the first handful of years of my career, because My rookie year, we won the Grey Cup. And then 2008 actually might have been the best team that we had. I mean, 2013 was a very, very good football team, but 2008, we had a very, very good team, and we were winning all the tight games. Like when it came down to the fourth quarter, we just seemed to pull out the wins. But we ran into a lot of injuries that year that had a large play on how the season unfolded in the end. But then, we were back in the Grey Cup in 2009 and 2010 before, finally going back and winning in 2013. So a lot of trips to the Grey Cup in a short period of time throughout the, early part of my career. It felt great. I mean, when you're playing with a bunch of guys and you're enjoying every day, and you get to go play a sport for a living with a bunch of buddies, and you're having success, it was just a really great time in my life.
So you mentioned the 4 Grey Cups that you participated in with the Riders: 07, 09, 10, and 13. 2 of those were wins, 2 of those were losses, and all the games were very close, except for 2013. That's when the barn doors were blown off. So in those 2 losses in between the 2 wins, what was the toughest lesson that you had to learn as an individual, and then you believe that the team had to learn in order to help get you guys over the hump?
I mean, 2009 was about as big as a lesson as you can get. When you lose in that fashion, you're playing a really good football game. You're ahead on a very good football team, and all aspects of the game are going well. Offense is playing pretty good, defense is playing really good, special teams doing their job, and then it comes down to a flag being thrown and them getting a retry to kick and win the game. That's heart-wrenching. It was absolute crushing to lose in that fashion, but looking back, and after you take a little time, we gave up 17 points in the last 7 minutes of the football game. I mean, you do that in any game, in almost any game, you're probably going to lose. So, I think it was a combination of things that kind of led to that meltdown, and it was a learning experience for a lot of guys in the locker room, and to be able to endure that and move on. And, we came back in 2010 and had another really good year, and ran into the same team in the Grey Cup again. And, I have no problem saying that they outplayed us that day. 09, they came back, like I said, scored 17 points in the last 7 minutes. It was a terrible way to lose, but overall in that game, I believe that we outplayed them. Whereas in 2010, I don't think that was the case. So, you learn a lot of lessons. It's not winning all the time that teaches you all those lessons that I'm talking about. It's going through hard times and losing in big moments that gain a lot of experience, so that the next time that big moment comes, maybe that experience will come in and kick in, and you'll be able to overcome it.
I've always believed that this phrase is one of the truest things I've heard when it comes to dealing with the ups and downs of life. Sometimes the disappointment is what makes the victory that much sweeter. And I don't think that a better phrase could be used to describe exactly how you guys handled the adversity of losing not 1, but 2 Grey Cups in back-to-back years to the same team in both super close games. And like you said, 09, minus the fourth quarter, you guys dominated them. And in 2010, it was a close game, and you guys had a chance at the end, and unfortunate error at an unfortunate time. But again, no one individual to blame for either losses. And then in 2013, you get a chance at home in the last possible Grey Cup to be played at Old Mosaic Stadium and romp the Tiger Cats by 3 scores. And G.R. Simon gets his first Grey Cup in a long time. He had played, or second Grey Cup, I believe it was, because he had won 2011, and then he won 2013. Towards the end of his career, you won the Grey Cup for the second time. Darian Durant won a Grey Cup, and it came home. So describe that feeling at the final whistle when the clock hit 000 and it was all said and done, and the confetti finally came down in green and white again for the second time in your career.
Yeah, I mean, that's a special feeling to be able to do it in front of your home crowd. And the way that we were able to play that game and dominate right from the start, really, that definitely helps with any nerves that anyone's probably going to end up having, when you have pretty large cushion for the majority of the football game. I mean, halftime, I think it was 31-6 or something. So, we were firing on all cylinders, and I think that all kind of led up the last few games of the year and us getting there. We won a tight game against BC at home before having to go to Calgary when we had lost a tight game in Calgary near the end of the season. And, the whole locker room said, we'll be back. And when we came there and we were able to dominate them the way that we did, was pretty awesome. And then, obviously when you're at home on the home field in front of your home fans for the last Grey Cup at that stadium, it's a pretty special feeling to see that confetti falling and be able to lift the cup and be able to say that you accomplished the goal that everyone goes into each year wanting to.
You scored many touchdowns in your career and had many, many receiving yards. So I must know, what was the most memorable touchdown you had during your CFL career?
Oh, wow. The most memorable touchdown. The first one that jumps out to me is in 2009 when I got to start for Andy Fantuz when he went down the game before. It was kind of a coming out party for me. I ended up scoring 2 touchdowns, but we were down in the fourth quarter and late in the fourth quarter, and it was 3rd and 10, and Durant threw a strike behind everyone to me, and it was about a 60-yard touchdown, and we ended up winning the game by 1. So, that one really stands out because, from then on, I had more of a role in the offense, and it continued to gain momentum for my career. And when it comes to playing time, I'd say that's the biggest touchdown that stands out. Just because of the fashion and being able to come back late like that, and kind of really getting my feet wet into playing time. I had played in 08 a little bit, but 09 is when I started to play quite a bit, and that game was kind of a coming out party.
When you mention that game, the first thing that I think of next is another super crazy game that you guys played in. Memorable touchdowns. Whenever I ask that of old CFL players and guys that have finished their playing careers, most of them usually don't say, unless with exception to like an all-time record, they usually say my first touchdown or that first chance I got to prove myself. That was very memorable because that's what starts it all. And so to see your evolution from that time in 2009 to being a key player in the offense, and then the next year you guys opened the season on Canada Day in 2010, and in terms of regular season games, probably the greatest regular season game has ever played. When you guys got revenge in some sort of way, obviously it wasn't a great cup, but still, like, talk about the 2010 season opener against the Alouettes, because that game was just absolutely bonkers.
That was I think it was one of the greatest games that there has been in the CFL. Amazing. Back and forth, and just so much scoring, so much offense. And I think we had 4 receivers over 100 yards that game. It was pretty crazy. So yeah, that was one that I'll truly remember. But I didn't score a touchdown in that game, but put up some yards, and like I said, back and forth, and to go to double overtime and win that game after losing to them in the Grey Cup the year before was pretty cool.
I'm sure the emotions must have been riding very high, considering that was the first game you guys had played since losing the 2009 Grey Cup. And then I actually didn't even really remember this. I remember watching the highlights of the game and seeing like SJ Green's catch that you'd literally have to use like 8K definition to see how close he is to being out of bounds. But the play that I'm sure must have had your heart racing was at the end of I think it was at the end of the game or overtime, when it was 3rd and 10 for the Alouettes or something. And they threw a pass, or Calvillo threw a pass over a receiver's head, and then they threw a flag for too many men. I just remember Glenn Suter saying anything but too many men. Like, what? How do you handle the emotions in the game on the sideline like that when after like a traumatic loss, you guys are now in the same scenario in a back and forth game against the same team?
I mean, when you're playing football, you got to control what you can control. And, after it's done, there's nothing you can do about it. So if you're going to sit there and complain and hang your head the whole time, then it's just going to affect you on the upcoming plays. So, part of going through that kind of heartache and that we had to, that gives you some experience with that. You just have to be able to move on and move on to the next play and, hope you can rebound. And, we were able to do that game.
And the way that you guys did rebound seemed to prove that there was a turning around the corner of learning the lessons and really starting to gel, because you guys were still a super successful team, always on the top half of the Western Division, and then eventually the culmination of the Grey Cup. Now that your career is done and you work in Regina and you work in the financial industry, what are the top 2 things that you learn from football that you apply in your day-to-day life, in your work and outside of work?
I mean, I think that teamwork and communication are probably the 2 biggest things that I can carry over into what I do today. As a financial advisor, you have to have multiple relationships with all your clients as well as with your team members. I have a business partner, we have an assistant, and then we have several other advisors in the office on different teams. But being able to communicate with them and kick ideas off of each other, and then having that communication through to your clients is huge in building trust and building a good relationship. And then obviously I touched on the teamwork of, using everyone around you to help better your career, really. I mean, anything that you're trying to learn, you can always pick up from experience from others or information from other people. So communicating and developing that with your team, I think goes a long way.
And the transition that CFL players have from their playing career to the profession that they may have after they're done playing can sometimes be a difficult one. But maybe being back home or having stayed in the same place in Regina where you call home, did you find that your transition was pretty smooth from playing in the CFL to now being a financial advisor in post-retirement?
Yeah, my transition was actually pretty seamless. I've been a financial advisor since I was in the second year in the CFL. So, I kind of was slowly building up a book of business and getting my feet wet in the industry, leading up, for several years before I decided to retire. And at the moment I retired is when I became 50-50 partners with my business partner. So it was pretty seamless. I kind of had it all mapped out and with goals that I wanted to accomplish and where I wanted to be come the time that it was time to hang up the cleats. And, when that day came, it was an easy transition.
I want to ask you about the relationship that you have with your brother. He is a professional athlete as well and played in the NHL and has played for the Anaheim Ducks for many years and also won a national championship in the Stanley Cup when the Ducks won in 2007. You guys have been very close since you were kids and have had the opportunity to impact and influence each other's ability to perform through being competitive and playing multiple different sports. As you guys grew up, was there a moment when you realized that your brother would become a professional athlete from the day-to-day interactions that you guys had playing sports?
I think that I don't think I really ever had much of a doubt that he would end up becoming a professional athlete. I mean, you're talking a guy that's good at everything. Every sport that we played, he was exceptional at. When we first got into hockey, he's 2 years younger than me, but he was playing with my age group for a few years, and he wasn't out of place at all. And then the Queen City Regina which is who ran the hockey league that we were playing in, forced him to play with his own age group. And I mean, he would dominate that every single year, until he was drafted into the WHL. But on top of that, I mean, he was a phenomenal baseball player. I don't doubt at all that if he would have went the baseball route, that he probably could have played that professionally as well. So I don't know. He dominated multiple sports from a very young age. And as we got older, the domination just kept increasing. It's not like it fell off at any point in time. So I just don't think there was much of a doubt that he was going to end up to be some sort of professional athlete. And then we were still fairly young when he chose hockey, and you could see that that was going to be the sport that he would be a professional in.
What's your favorite sports memory with your brother, or top three, I guess I could say, because there's probably quite a bit that you can think of?
Wow. Like when we played together, or
it could be either or, like, you guys are both adults and you're in the CFL, he's in the NHL, or when you're young kids and you're playing together, and where there could be like minor or amateur, whatever it may be.
Right. Well, I mean, the Bantam football team on the Lions, we won the championship. I think it was 13-12 again. It's going back to kind of that hilltop story there. But, that was kind of a cool one. But I mean, the majority of our sports ventures were separate because I'm 2 years older than he is. So it was extremely rare that we were actually on the same team. So, I mean, he's won 2 Olympic gold medals. I was there for both of them. I mean, amazing experiences. The Stanley Cup, Stanley Cup was a weird one because when he won, that was my very first training camp in Hamilton. So I was in training camp while he was playing in the Stanley Cup. So unfortunately, I couldn't be there. But we ended up winning the Grey Cup that year. So that was a pretty cool year that went down. So, I mean, there's all kinds of them. I mean, I think the Olympic gold medals were pretty special to be there and witness that.
And the Olympic gold, which were the years that he was on the Olympic team when they won the gold medal?
2010, 2014. So in Vancouver and in Russia.
And you were at the game then in 2010?
Correct. Yeah.
So please describe what that feeling was like, and the golden goal, and to be there to see your brother win the gold medal, and in the fashion that it came in after Canadians, their hearts were turning after the Americans tied it with whatever it was, I think less than a minute left in the game. Like what was it like to be at the gold medal game in Vancouver in 2010?
I mean, it was nuts. It wasn't even just in the rink. It was kind of everywhere. Everywhere that you walked, there's all kinds of fans. There's all kinds of hype because of the Olympics, obviously. And, the fact that Team Canada lost to the US in the round robin going in, I mean, there was a lot of hype for that specific game when it came down to the gold medal. And, it was a great back and forth game. It was amazing hockey. And, you're kind of on the edge of your seat the whole time, especially going into overtime when whoever strikes next is going to be wearing that gold medal. So it was pretty amazing and an electric atmosphere.
Every story that you hear from Canadian fans who watch the game, it follows a similar storyline, despite the fact that there's, like you said, so many different places people were watching from. It wasn't just in the rink. Everyone can tell you, I remember where I was when Sidney Crosby scored, or remembering Chris Cuthbert's call, and even just seeing some Twitter exchanges between him or Ray Ferraro talking about, I was trying to say the call, and then halfway through my sentence, I couldn't even hear myself because that's how loud it was in the building. Like, I can't even imagine what an experience like that is for Canadian hockey fans, especially the culmination of a Canadian player scoring game-winning goal in the gold medal game in overtime against the US after they tied it and after they lost in the round robin.
Yeah, and on Canadian soil. So yeah, it was one of the loudest I've ever heard of a hockey rink before. So it was pretty crazy.
Did you watch NFL growing up when you were a kid, or or were you more of like a just watch the CFL or watch NHL?
No, I watch both. I definitely was and am still a fan of the NFL. I totally enjoy football as a whole, so I watch a lot of both leagues, and um, yeah, totally enjoy it.
Do you have a favorite team growing up or favorite players?
Uh, yeah, I was a Jaguars fan for a little bit right when they came into the league. Um, and then I kind of got fed up, and only after a couple of years. This is right when I was becoming kind of an NFL fan. I thought that I had to choose a team, and I kind of went with them because they were a brand new franchise at the time. And then I couldn't handle it after a couple of years, so I decided to go to a mediocre team at the time, which is the New Orleans Saints, and I've been a fan of them ever since. And thankfully, they turned into quite a good team, although we've had to deal with some heartbreak over the last few years.
I actually thought you were pranking me when you said I like the Jaguars. I'm like, oh, you're just saying that as they're because you see the jersey in the background. Like I know it's a super rare thing to hear, and any time that someone says to me, like, do you really like the Jaguars? Like, is that an actual thing? And I just go, yeah, it's an actual thing. And I mean, most people say to me, oh, you must have grown up with the Mark Brunell, Jimmy Smith, Fred Taylor, et cetera era. I'm like, nope. Started cheering for them in 2013 when they had Gus Bradley and were really bad. So when you watch the Jags in the first few years, and that was like, you're talking like 95, 96 in that era.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Brunel was um, he was kind of the reason that I got off the team. But no, yeah. You're talking, some pretty major players there that were there kind of right off the start, right? So, um, and it had nothing to do with that though. Like, I literally had just kind of started watching NFL, and I thought I should choose a team, and they were a brand new team. That's kind of when I was becoming an NFL fan. So that's why I just chose them at that time, and then made a decision to move on and become a diehard Saints fan, which I still am today.
So, I have a question then. Like, how come you didn't choose the Panthers? Because they came to in the league at the exact same year as them.
No idea. I couldn't tell you that. It was just picking one, and maybe it was the colors. I don't know. So I it was only a couple years that I stuck with them, and then, like I said, moved on to a Saints team that was, I think they were 7-9 when I started kind of cheering for the Saints. And
Was that in
they
2003?
well, I don't know what year it would have been. I wouldn't be able to pinpoint that exactly. Aaron Brooks years.
The reason why I say that is because uh, there's a very, very infamous play in Saints history that it's not like it's, oh, they lost the Super Bowl or it's not any of the playoff losses in the last 5 years, but the River City Relay where Aaron Brooks threw a hook and ladder that ended up going all the way to the end zone with no time on the clock to tie the game to keep their season alive. And then John Carney missed the extra point, and that was against the Jaguars. And that was like in and around the time that the Saints were like kind of okay. It was after the whole Ricky Williams fiasco with Mike Ditka, and then they were starting to rise again and then went down. So I just figured like if it was around that year, that's like super
Yeah.
like ironic that like
Oh yeah, no, it was right around that year. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
became bad and then the
pretty
Saints.
nuts finish, and yeah, to miss an extra point. Yeah, that's heart wrenching for sure. But yeah, they had Joe Horn at the time too, which I was a huge fan of.
So when you watch the NFL game, I know people always talk about, oh, the CFL is this and that in comparison, or American fans, I guess will say that. Canadian fans know how good the CFL product is. With everything that's happened in the last year and now leading up to training camp coming very, very soon after the CFL, how did you look at and appreciate the perspective of liking the NFL and liking the CFL, having played Canadian football your whole life, but also being a fan of the NFL?
I don't know. I just never looked at it as you got to choose one or the other. I thought that they both have, they're both a unique game in their own. And, I like the CFL because it's kind of high flying, electric, a lot of passing, high scoring. So, that really drove interest on the CFL side of things. And then um, NFL, has arguably the best athletes when it comes to the game of football. So, there are way more teams. So I don't know. There's a lot between it, and I like football in general. So being able to be a fan of both, I think completely makes sense. And yeah, I mean, weekends are full come football season.
Well, Chris, we're getting towards the end of our time in today's episode. So I want to ask you a few quick wrap-up questions and have some fun before we part for today.
Okay.
So first question is, who is... Oh, hold on a second. I can edit that out. No worries. I try to take a pause and then we can get back. So, okay. So the first question I have is, who is the greatest professional athlete from Saskatchewan that's not Gordie Howe?
Wow. I mean, there's a lot. I don't, that's putting me really on the spot. The best professional athlete to ever come out of Saskatchewan. I don't know. I can't even answer that question. There's a bunch of athletes that have come out of Saskatchewan. I mean, I would think that you have to probably look at the hockey route most likely.
Who are the who are the first five you think of then, if it's hard to narrow down to one?
Holy, five. Okay, now you got to make me think of five Saskatchewan athletes to say. I mean, I would probably put my brother in that category then. Gordie Howe. Yeah, you already mentioned Gordie Howe. I don't know. I'm not going to answer. I'm not going to be able to give you good answers for that question. So you kind of stumped me, put me on the spot, and yeah, they're not coming to mind. So.
Okay, well, hopefully this is an easier one. Who is your favorite hockey player growing up before your brother played in the NHL?
Joe Sakic.
Was your favorite team also wherever he went, or did you have a different favorite team growing up?
No, that wasn't my favorite team. He was just my favorite player. My favorite teams growing up, Vancouver, Edmonton. I was mainly Canadian hockey team fans of Canadian hockey teams. So, but yeah, Joe Sakic was definitely my favorite player.
Who is the best opposing quarterback that you ever played against in the CFL?
Anthony Calvillo, no doubt.
Who is the funniest teammate you ever played with on the Saskatchewan Roughriders?
Man, that's a three-prong answer, I think, for me. Scott Schultz, Mike McCullough, and Jason Claremont, I think, would be the three funniest that I've played with.
Who was the best head coach you had during your CFL career?
I mean, the head coaches, came across several good head coaches. I don't know if I want to pick a favorite, but maybe Ken Miller.
What is your favorite sports movie of all time?
Favorite sports movie? I mean, Happy Gilmore is probably up there. I like several sports movies though. I like Necessary Roughness, The Program, Any Given Sunday, Remember the Titans. I mean, there's a lot of good football movies that I was just talking about, but you know, Slapshot is a great hockey movie. There's a lot of good sports movies.
If there was to be a professional hockey team in Saskatchewan, what name would you give the team?
Wow. That's also a stumper when it comes to that. I'm trying to think of, I mean, do you want it to be something that would be real Saskatchewan-esque, like a beaver, or I don't know.
How about what do you think a funny Saskatchewan-esque name would be then for if they had an NHL team?
Oh, I mean, Saskatoon or the Saskatchewan Prairie Dogs, something like that.
Now, within Saskatchewan, obviously having all the WHL teams they do, or I guess if you grew up in Regina, then you're a big Regina Pats fan then, correct?
Yeah, fan of the Pats. Yeah.
So then who, in your opinion, is the best Pats player that you ever saw during your lifetime?
That I ever saw.
Like you remember like watching on TV or watching maybe at the rink or something.
Right. I mean, the one that's standing out to me right now would be Josh Holden. So that's just the first name that's kind of coming to mind. There's obviously plenty that have played the game. So Josh Holden would be one of them.
And the final question, if you were to become a professional athlete of an obscure sport, which would it be and why? That could be like ones that people don't watch on TV like crazy, like any of the major four. It could be like bowling or ping pong or badminton or something
golf.
like that.
Golf for sure. Yeah, golf is watched lots on TV, but I'm assuming you're putting that in that same category because it's outside of the major four.
I would say golf is maybe not as obscure, just like because I mean it's not considered a part of the major four in North America, but maybe then besides golf, because like I feel like there's so many CFL guys that love playing golf after they're done their playing career, especially the ones that, you know, didn't play like on like O-line or D-line or something. So, I mean, again, if you like Happy Gilmore, he must be a big golf guy then now.
Oh, I love golf. I play golf a lot. So, well, a different obscure sport then. I mean, if it was one that I'd love to be good at, you know, maybe like a gymnastics. I think that would be gymnastics would create one of the overall best kind of athletes that you can come across. You got a combination of strength, flexibility, pressure. I mean, a kind of everything that comes along with that. So, you know, if I was going to pick one that I would like to be good at, I mean, gymnastics would help create an overall great athlete.
Now, just quickly before we go, now that we're on you bring up loving golf and playing golf a lot. How much would you wager to beat your brother in a game of golf? Unless he's not a golfer at all.
Oh, he's a way better golfer than me. I would never put money down. Oh, it's not even close. When I say I play golf a lot, that doesn't mean I'm good at it. I just play it a lot. Ryan's actually a very good golfer, which isn't surprising, as I told you, he's pretty much good at every sport that you can think of. So, no, he's like a 2 handicap golfer, so he's a very good golfer. Yeah,
who would
I'm not even in that realm.
So then who would you choose if you had like one, like if you played like the match against your brother, who do you think he would choose to be a celebrity golf partner, and who would you choose?
Who would he choose and who would I choose? Well, I feel like he would choose Freddie Couples because he's played with them before. They're both members at Big Canyon that down in California. So I feel like he would probably choose. He might choose him. He has a few different friends that are professional golfers that he talks to from time to time. So who knows who he'd end up choosing? But I mean, if I were to choose, you know, I'd probably go with Tiger Woods. I mean, he's been a legend for as long as I've been a golf fan. So, I mean, he's arguably pretty sure he's the best golfer to ever touch the earth. So I'm sure there's some arguments out there for that, but that would be my guess for it.
With that, we've reached the end of our time on today's episode, talking golf, football, all things in between, Saskatchewan athletes. Just, it's been a wild, wild ride seeing everything you've done playing in the CFL. I actually wasn't even aware that you were older than your brother Ryan. I thought that he was the one that was older because he had played and won with Anaheim way back when, but you guys are quite the dynamic duo for professional athlete siblings from Saskatchewan. I don't know if there's a better pair, honestly.
No, thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you for listening to today's episode with former Saskatchewan Roughrider receiver and 2-time Grey Cup champion, Chris Getzlaf.